Okay. It's 3:30, so we'll get started. Welcome. I'm Jen Ceponis, Director of Regional Planning at the Capital District Transportation Committee. And this is the monthly webinar as part of our New Visions virtual learning series. Today's webinar is going to be on TDM, and we have some of our TDM partners here to talk about really the full range of TDM services and programs here in the Capital Region. Next slide, please. And I know many of you have been with us before, but just as a reminder, if you're an attendee, you can see us and we can't see you. Your mic is muted. If you do have a question, you can use the chat or the Q&A function. And it is, a small enough group. If you want to ask your question yourself, you can raise your hand and I would be happy to unmute you. Next slide. So the New Visions virtual learning series has been approved by many municipalities to count towards the New York State Department of State's requirements for planning and zoning boards. And this webinar has been approved for CM credits for AICP members. Next slide. So each month, our webinars focus on a different topic in New Visions. And next month, our webinar is scheduled for July 19th, and we will have kind of a roundtable on what can your regional planning agency do for you. So CDTC and CDRPC will present together on the technical assistance, the data available, and the range of resources available to local governments and local planners here in the Capital Region. In August, we have a webinar planned on how to select a location for a rectangular rapid flashing beacon at RRFB. And in September, it's Drive Electric Month. So we will be talking about planning tools for electrifying transportation. Next slide, please. All of our previous webinars are on our New Visions Learning Series webpage. The link is below. You can also get to the page from our homepage. Also, if you can also visit our New Visions webpage if you would like to revisit and review the New Visions executive summary and all of the other materials related to New Visions. Next slide. So today we have a number of panelists that are going to go through different segments of TDM. So we have Rima Shamieh from CDTC, and we also have Lindsey, Bradt, and Jonathan Willoughby from CDTA, and we have Jim Davis from New York State Department of Transportation. And with that, I will jump into our intro and overview. Next slide. So as many of you know, the Capital District Transportation Committee is a metropolitan planning organization, or MPO, for New York's Capital Region. An MPO is a transportation policy making and planning organization that allocates federal transportation funding resources to local transportation infrastructure projects and planning programs. The northeast corner of Saratoga County, South Glens Falls, and the town of Monroe. And we also include our state and local and regional planning partners like the State Department of Transportation and CDTA and the Regional Planning Commission and others. Next slide, please. So we are in the New Visions implementation period. New Visions is our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which was adopted in September 2020. So we are implementing it through our other major products, including the Unified Planning Work Program and the Transportation Improvement Program. This learning series is part of our implementation efforts, and we're also offering training for planning boards, zoning boards, town boards, or city councils by request on New Vision's topics. Next slide. And like I said, you know, our major products are New Visions, which is our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and the planning investment principles laid out in this plan influence all of our other planning initiatives like the UPWP and TIP. Next slide. So you may be wondering what implementation of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan looks like. These are just some examples of major infrastructure investments that have been constructed because of the priorities and strategies laid out in previous New Visions plans. So our bus rapid transit lines, the Albany County Rail Trail, the recent extension of the Zim-Smith Trail, replacement of the Rexford Bridge, the I-87 Exit 3 Airport Connector, and many other projects. Next slide, please. So we refer to our Metropolitan Transportation Plan as New Visions 2050, and what this is the Metropolitan Transportation Plan is a blueprint for regional transportation that reflects a shared vision for the future. It's a 30-year plan, and its purpose is to guide and prioritize funding of investment decisions. And it was developed collaboratively with transportation providers in the region and local governments and state agencies, but also with private sector stakeholders as well as the public. Next slide. And the centerpiece of New Visions are these 15 planning and investment principles. They're directly related to criteria that we use to evaluate proposed projects and prioritize them for federal funding. They've been developed and proposed over time, and they influence all types of tasks and initiatives that we do here at CDTC. Today's webinar will really focus in on the two principles: providing essential mobility for all and prioritizing affordable and convenient travel options. Next slide. So the statement that we make in New Visions, and I think Rima is going to really go into depth on what how we talk about mobility in New Visions, but our kind of main statement that we make on these that's related to the planning investment principles is that regional efforts will prioritize affordable and convenient travel options and programs that encourage behavioral shifts away from single occupancy vehicle travel and help balance the transportation system among driving, biking, walking, taking transit, carpooling, van pooling, and telework. Next slide. So how are we getting people to explore other transportation options in the region, given the current landscape and population in the region? So the capital region is a slow growth region. We are the home of the state capital, and we have a lot of state government workers, as well as medical and healthcare and university and college. So a lot of people are employed by those sectors, but we still, despite this really stable economy, we've remained a slow growing region. And it's not projected to increase significantly. However, you know, and as we'll talk about, there have been some shifts due to COVID over the last few years that may change, but we do not have the new census data. Next slide. And despite little growth, the region has experienced quite a bit of development. Consistent with national trends, multi-unit housing development is outpacing construction of new single-family houses unit for unit, and emissions from vehicles are up 17% in total and 7% per capita since 1990, even though population has grown very slowly. Next slide. The region has a robust network of highways, bridges, sidewalks, trails, bike facilities, and bus rapid transit that it connects to. All modes rely on this network of infrastructure. Next slide. Oh, that was my little animation at the end. And we've developed and connected this network incrementally through careful planning. And our goal is for this version of New Visions to continue that careful planning and investment. And in recent years, we've updated and developed several major regional planning documents for the region, which have provided a framework for New Visions and for our planning and investment principles. Next slide. So we do have some data pre-COVID, during COVID, and kind of like now and in the future, it's still kind of a question mark, but during the Great Recession years, 2008, 2009, the region saw some shifts in travel, including a decrease in driving. And the region bounced back from the recession, and it didn't completely return to pre-recession levels. And we saw walking, bicycling, and transit use grow for non-commute trips. Next slide. Which was in part because of an expansion in our transportation network and the options that the public had. About 50% of the region's population is within a quarter mile of a transit route, which has improved access to transit. TNCs like Uber and Lyft began operating in the region in 2017. We've seen shared mobility systems like bike share and car sharing launch here in the region and continue to grow. And technology and development patterns continue to push people towards kind of all of these options. Next slide. So we've developed a reliable multimodal system, but we're anticipating major changes, including more possible disruptions and growing issues and concerns that affect the transportation system, like rapidly changing technology, changing social and cultural trends, and also we're tackling big problems like inequality and climate change and funding uncertainty. So we continue to look forward and try and project what could happen and make sure that our transportation system is flexible and able to adapt and it's resilient regardless of the conditions. But this is something, it's a constant work in progress, something we're constantly looking at and trying to determine where the best investments are to make sure that we have a sustainable and thriving future. Next slide, please. So there were a number of trends like those that I just mentioned before the pandemic that we were tracking and trying to kind of think more about, like an increase in work from home or a shift to more work from home, more transit ridership, better integrating equity into the planning process or looking through plans through in an equity lens, parking management, new ways to solve congestion, of course, continuing to work with local governments on land use issues and preserving the system that we've already built. And as we saw during the pandemic, some of these issues either accelerated or they grew. So we've seen a major shift to work from home. We did see some mode shifts. We've seen more of a focus at the federal level on environmental justice and at the state level We saw curb management or parking management really change during COVID with deliveries or reallocating street space and sidewalk space to things like dining or other recreational uses, right sizing roadways, and thinking about land use and housing in terms of overcrowding versus density, and not just density as a bad thing. And then, of course, we've seen infrastructure spending being treated as a stimulus to the economy. Next slide. So we saw a major shift in traffic during the pandemic. We were getting regular free data from Streetlight. We saw a major reduction in travel throughout the region. We did see that mostly rebound, but it hasn't rebounded to pre-COVID levels even today. And then at the same time, we were doing spot checks on trails to see people had reported trails being crowded or trail use being up, and we did some counts and saw some really significant increases in residential areas, whereas the Albany Shaker Trail, which goes by the airport and is really serves just office parks, saw a lot less use. So we definitely saw some shifts around the region. Next slide. And we don't have data for the most updated trends and behaviors, but what we've observed, of course, is an increase in work from home. We've seen a leveling out of vehicle miles traveled or traffic throughout the day. So instead of really big peak hour travel times, we're seeing more of steady travel and traffic and congestion throughout the day, and an increase in e-commerce with more people getting groceries delivered, lunch, dinner delivered, and just, of course, Amazon and other online purchases. Transit ridership was slower to recover, but is recovering. And then outdoor dining is here to stay. So we're seeing a more longer term reallocation of the street space. Next slide. So a lot of our best practices and the strategies that are proposed throughout the New Visions plan are related or support TDM. So these are the major themes throughout New Visions: maintaining the system, managing congestion, not adding capacity, implementing complete streets to make it easier for people to walk or bike and use transit, working with developers to build more transit-oriented development, doing access management, implementing a safe systems or Vision Zero approach to safety, making sure that our infrastructure is complies with Americans with Disability Act, and of course, expanding public participation in the planning process. Next slide. And what we found is that there is strong support from the public for this. This is just one of our polls that we did during the New Visions process, where the public did express support for the major policies and principles in the plan. So we're still we're on the right track, and we know we have the public support to continue to make it easier to get out of the car and to make other transportation options more affordable and convenient. So with that, Rima, I'm gonna hand it to you.
Great. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Great. So I want to back up a little bit and go back to New Visions. Jen talked about sort of the general overview of New Visions and started to drill down a little bit into the content for TDM. So I'm just going to take that and discuss it in a little bit more depth. So what is TDM exactly? It's actually it can be a lot of different things. So I pulled the definition that we have in New Vision 2050, which states that transportation demand management.
I'm leaving now.
Suite of programs, services, and physical infrastructure designed to reduce single occupancy vehicle travel, fuel consumption, air pollution, and parking demand by making travel options like buses, van pooling, carpooling, walking, and biking more attractive and affordable. And TDM focuses on how people make their transportation decisions and helps people use existing infrastructure for non-SOV modes of travel. So there's a specific TDM planning and investment principle, which states that the regional efforts will prioritize affordable and convenient travel options and programs that encourage behavioral shifts from single occupancy vehicle travel and towards other modes. And that would help balance the transportation system among driving, biking, walking, taking transit, carpooling, van pooling, and telework. And so some of the goals and new visions that relate to TDM include improving the viability and livability of our built environment, increase the sustainability of our region, sustain a healthy transit network and other transportation services such as bike share and car share that enable people to travel efficiently without having to use a personal vehicle, enhancing the quality of life in the capital region, achieving equitable access to transportation resources, and increasing non-SOV mode share for trips throughout the region. And some of the objectives that would feed into those goals are things such as increasing the efficient use of land and parking facilities and existing transportation infrastructure, convincing regional travelers to switch from driving alone in their cars to for some or all of their trips, convincing large employers and institutions in the region to support their employees and their students, their customers, their patients, etc., to choose modes besides driving alone in their vehicles, and convince local municipalities to encourage or require developers to create TDM plans for new properties, and encourage or require large businesses to improve commuter benefits for their provide commuter benefits for their employees, convincing developers and property managers to provide infrastructure such as sidewalks, secure bike storage, and transit stops, and looking to decrease the drive alone mode share commute by increasing the other mode shares like transit, biking, walking, carpooling, and van pooling. So in New Visions, we have several performance measures, and there's a specific, some specific performance measures related to TDM, specifically looking at the objective of reducing the number of people in the region who commute alone by car, which is sort of at its distilled, at its most basic concept is what transportation demand management is. And so looking at some ways we would measure that objective is looking at the percent commute mode share for transit, carpooling, van pooling, biking, walking, and teleworking. And then looking at the number of registrants in our Capital Moves for Everyone New York rideshare portal. So before I dig into what it is that CDTC actually does, has been doing to work on these things, I just want to elaborate a little bit on that that whole sort of spiel that I just went through really quickly. So TDM has, as I said before, a number of different types of components. So it has, the infrastructure, right? It has infrastructure that sort of you have to have sort of in place in order for TDM to be successful, right? You can't encourage biking and walking if you don't have sidewalks and safe ways for people to, get around by a bicycle. So if you don't have bike lanes or trails, etc. So the physical infrastructure is really a component in TDM, but you also have services like the BRT line, like Drive and Scoot that we're going to hear more about in a little bit from our CDTA colleagues on the call. And then you also have more programmatic components to TDM. So a significant component of TDM is trying to communicate to people and get them to think about other modes. We tend to be creatures of habit. So when we get up in the morning and we need to go to work, we tend to just go to work in the same way we went to work yesterday and the day before that. So if that mode was, getting in your car and driving, then it's likely that you're going to do the same thing today. But part of TDM is thinking about, well, how can we message people? How can we send messages to people to try to get them, try to nudge them to think about other ways of being, other ways of doing things. Maybe they could carpool, maybe they could bike today instead of driving alone in their car. So it's thinking about those sort of incentives, but also thinking about disincentives. So parking programs where you're actually charging people by the day to park instead of providing free parking or providing a monthly parking fee is actually shown to be really successful in sort of pushing people to, maybe they will keep driving, but maybe they'll drive, maybe they'll choose a different mode once or twice a week instead. So things like that. So we're thinking about TDM as this whole suite of different components: infrastructure, services, and also programmatic, the programmatic side of things. So TDM in the capital region, partnerships and CDTC's role. So I know that we've got Jim Davis on the call, and he's going to be diving into capital moves and what capital moves is. But I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it so you understand the context of this slide. We have a wonderful sort of, I call it a commuter clearinghouse website in our region called Capital Moves, and it's a member of the sort of 501 New York rideshare website conglomerate. I'm not really sure how to put it exactly. Maybe Jim, you can put it more eloquently. But it's our regional sort of clearinghouse of all things that have to do with a person's commute or getting around the region. So there's a lot of information in there about all the different types of mode shares that we have in the region available, plus various different types of programs like our Guaranteed Ride Home program that is implemented by CDTA. And also we maintain the publicly posted van pool list on that website as well. So one of the things that we do in the region is maintain that website by working with 501 New York Rideshare, working with CDTA on the carpool program and on the Guaranteed Ride Home, or we call it the GRH program, and making sure everything is running smoothly, and where our different roles touch, that they are integrated. So another way we've been working together is in trying to cross-promote our programs. In 2020, right when the pandemic hit, we were working on a joint marketing plan, which was one of the things that we identified as something that we could do just to better coordinate with each other. And at the time, it was CDTC, CDTA, 501 New York Rideshare, and the Capital Car Share, which unfortunately folded during the pandemic. But lucky for us, CDTA is taking over and launching its own car share. So we put that marketing plan together and implemented a little bit of it before COVID really kind of derailed some things. And then, really working to cultivate more of that relationship or that presence with more of the private sector side of things. So because a lot of what TDM does has to do with people's commutes and how employees get to work, a lot of portions of its implementation, especially like the programmatic side, human resources and private businesses really play a significant role. So we've been reaching out to the Capital Region Human Resources Association and the Capital Region Chamber just to establish a rapport with them, and we actually developed and administered a joint commuter and employer survey back in 2020 during when it was sort of early fall, late summer, early fall. So it was when the region started opening up again to kind of get a gauge for what the commuters out there were doing and what the employers were doing, what they were anticipating in terms of people's commutes in the region. So encouragement programs, we have 3 sort of flagship encouragement programs in our region. The first is the Bike to Work Challenge that's been going on since, I think, 2014. And it just ended earlier this month. And we also have a walk and roll to school program, which was recently retooled to be walk and roll. Before it was the Bike to School program, the Bike to Work, the Bike to School Challenge. You might have heard of it under that, when it was in that sort of version. And it's just exactly what it sounds. It's, working with schools to try to promote walking and biking to school, and promoting, a regional day where schools can sort of organize walk and roll events for their schools. And then there's the Ditch the Car Challenge, which is more of an individualized sort of fun challenge. People can sign up, and it's a way to log your trips, and you can earn these electronic, digital badges, and you can see yourself in the rankings, which is a community-wide 4-county ranking. And if you post on social media, earn badges every month, we raffle off a bundle of prizes for the participants. And it's kind of fun. We get people who get really into logging all of their non-SOV trips. So some key strategies. We are going to be working on a regional commuter survey during this UPWP period. So between now and next spring, we'll be developing that and putting that out. And we'll be looking to identify the existing habits and motivations of commuters in our region right now, and hopefully we'll be able to identify market segments within that population, so we can figure out how to, figure out ways to improve our messaging to our commuters. And we're also looking to strengthen our regional TDM partnerships with the Chambers of Commerce, with human resources professionals, and with the New York State Governor's Office of Employee Relations, for example. There's others as well. More key strategies: maintain an up-to-date capital move site. There's a lot going on in the region with respect to mobility, and so the site needs updating pretty regularly. CDTA is going to be launching, if it hasn't already. I'm not sure. You guys will have to tell me if Scoot and Drive have actually launched already. I guess I'll find out in about a couple minutes. So there's new mobility options coming out. There's new BRT lines. There's new flex on demand regions. There's we get new park and ride lots and whatnot. So all that stuff needs to be updated and maintained on the site so that we have the most accurate information available. So that's something we continuously working on, but we're going to be updating the park and ride map this summer. And then just continue to grow those encouragement programs like Bike to Work and Walk and Roll to School. So some future work that we'll be thinking about is looking to work with local municipalities to encourage TDM plans for new properties, and encouraging or requiring large businesses to improve provide commuter benefits for their employees. This is really, our region's done such a fantastic job with services, and we're building out all that infrastructure. So I feel like it's maybe time to start really going a little bit more in depth to think about how to really sort of build out the programmatic side of our TDM programming or our TDM efforts in the region. So just a couple of general resources for those of you who might be interested in learning more about what TDM is and what's going on in the field nationally. There's an Association of Commuter Transportation, which is a national. They have a conference, they have webinars and forums and newsletters. They are a wealth of information. And they also offer a national certification program for TDM professionals. And then there's this really, really great research and publications resource in the Center for Urban Transportation Research, which is based in the University of South Florida. In addition to their research and their publications, they also maintain a nationwide email list where TDM professionals or planners or local officials or anybody who is involved in anything TDM related can join that list and post a question on the list, and you will get, I don't know how many people are on that list, probably thousands of people. You know, you can get in front of them and get your questions answered and get resources from people all over the country related to TDM. So it's a really great resource. A couple of other things, some land use resources. There's some great documents, actually a really, really big, really big document called Integrating Demand Management into the Transportation Planning Process, a desk reference, which was issued by the FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration. And Chapter 8 in particular looks at how to integrate TDM at the local planning level. And it has this really great, really built out, detailed framework on, it looks at different levels of TDM integration for a variety of different local planning activities, and it groups them into different levels, 1, 2, and 3, and then it includes this really in-depth list of actions that can be taken to bring one municipality from like a level 1 through a level 3. So level 3 would be like, I don't know, probably Portland, for example, Portland, Oregon, or a place like that, that just, or Seattle, that has done a lot of work on and spent a lot of time and investment on like integrating TDM into its land use. And then a level 1 would be someone who's a community that's more sort of at the beginning of its sort of TDM journey. And then it sort of identifies like ways to kind of how you can level up over time. You know, you can add sort of this from this sort of menu on how to sort of up your game in the TDM world. And then there's the Transportation Demand Management Plans for Development, which is a report from the Department of Transportation, the Oregon Department of Transportation, and the Department of basically their equivalent of the DEC, their Department of Land Conservation and Development. And it looks at TDM measures related to new and expanding development, such as subsidized transit passes for employees, parking cash out programs, bike safety education classes, and TMAs, which are Transportation Management Associations. They're sort of like a group of businesses that come together to form an organization to kind of provide TDM support to that group of businesses instead of just one business going in on its own. And so it looks at, it emphasizes the use of TDM plans as part of the site plan review process. So it's also a really good resource. And then there's the incorporation of TDM into the development review process, final report and recommendations. And I'm sorry, I didn't list who it's from, but this is a report that was issued by the Washington, D.C. DOT. So that's a local, a locally produced product. But one of the things that's great about it is that two things. One is that it includes TDM best practices. They kind of look throughout the country and then pull together best practices, and then summarize, I think it was 6 case studies. And now I'm going to pass it on to Jonathan and Lindsey, Lindsey Bradt and Jonathan Willoughby from CDTA. You guys are ready?
Jonathan, are you ready?
Yes, sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm in the car right now. Had to grab my nephew. Something happened, but everything's okay over here. I was actively listening, and I do appreciate the large bits of information that I did receive. I've learned a lot so far. Let me see here. Do you have the presentation, or did you need me to share my screen?
I have the presentation, and if you just let me know when you want me to forward the slides.
Oh, that was fast.
I would be happy to do that, or you could.
Okay. All right. See, I'll actually just let you know.
Okay.
I do appreciate that. And again, thanks for having me. I've really learned a lot. It's very interesting to know that we actually had all these things in the capital region. Even when I was in school, which isn't that long ago, I didn't even hear about half of these things. So it's pretty exciting to know that we have some people who are dedicated to, making transportation more accessible and kind of making it interactive also for younger audiences. So kudos to you guys. So I am here to really briefly break down some of the new things that CDTA has been integrating into our infrastructure. We're constantly changing our fixed route network. I heard Flex, I heard Scoot, lots of great things that we're actively trying to, polish up and make better for everyone in the capital region. If you could go ahead and transition to the next slide for me, please. Thank you. And just a quick overview, we have a total of 750 employees. Even though that number might not be correct in about a week or so, that is the current number of employees we have. We have a 2,300 square foot of miles in, service is what we like to call it, because even, in our divisions, we have buses that can get you close enough to our areas of where our depots are, where our facilities are, or even our corporate office. It's about like a 2-minute walk down the hill from our 125 bus stop. We have 3 divisions, and we have over 300 vehicles. We also have about 30 to 32 non-revenue vehicles, including specialty vehicles like utilities and facilities that kind of help us on the road. We have a budget of $113 million. We have different services, including fixed route, which I did mention. We have some express services, STAR, which is paratransit. We have commuter trippers, Flex on Demand, CDPH Recycle, and seasonal services as well. And we have a lot of regional community partners. We do something every year called Stuff the Bus, for mothers and children who are in need. That's one of my favorite things that we do. As well as in the month of breast cancer awareness, we have all of our drivers wear pink to kind of resemble the fight for breast cancer. And we paint 2 or 3 of our vehicles pink to kind of just spread more awareness. And the public does get involved in some of that with helping to raise some donations externally, but internally we are very huge on making sure that we donate. You can go ahead and transition to the next slide for me, please. Okay, and our route network. We currently have 50, more than 50 routes serving the capital region, with more, of course, on the way that you guys all should know as we slowly expand into Warren and Montgomery County. We currently have 10 million trips annually, where we previously had 15 million pre-pandemic. Along with our ridership. Our ridership has taken a little bit of a hit in the beginning, effective, 19 to 20. But ridership so far has increased about 75 to 80%. We're looking for the over 100% increase, hopefully by the next year. And in 2017, we actually did earn the award for the Mid-Size Transit System of the Year. Unfortunately, I was not an employee at that time, but everyone was very excited. We were kind of giving each other pats on the back from what I heard, and we were very dedicated to making sure that we achieve that. Kind of goes hand in hand with our mission statement that CDTA has, which is to provide mobility solutions for the capital region and its connected communities. As very important as that is, which you all briefly mentioned earlier. We have transit solutions for business, service providers, colleges, and municipalities as a part of our universal access program. And we have a growing platform of mobility services that I know you guys are very interested to hear about, so I'm not going to make you guys wait any longer. If you could transition to the next slide for me. Thank you. And some of our universal access partners, of course, includes some of the colleges, universities up here, major employers, government agencies, and that includes their technology access. So with their ID badges and school IDs, that is basically their bus pass. They can hop on board, they can swipe their ID or tap their college ID, and they have access to every route in our network. And I believe they also have access to CDPHP cycle, some of them, and that has been just remarkable for some of them from what I've heard. One of our newest partners on the screen that you see will be Stewart's Shops. Their human resource department oversees the distribution of those passes. We have Albany. We've been a universal access, they've been our universal access partner for a while now, as well as Albany Medical Center and Albany International Airport. And along those places, you'll see we do have transportation that goes within those businesses and within those areas like the airport and Albany as well. And if you could transition to the next one for me. Thank you. And how does it work? CDTA offers unlimited access to CDTA's route network, granting employees and students access to services by swiping their complimentary school ID card or their Navigator smart card or mobile ticket. Again, very easy, very accessible for those who are our universal access partners. It is a free access that has great incentives for customers to ride regularly. A lot of our buses now, we actually just received 3 of them, and we have 30 new vehicles on the way for fixed route. They have USB-C chargers. They have a UV sanitization system, which helps purify the air and is constantly killing pathogens and contaminants. And other stuff that kind of just makes the ride a lot more safer, especially, due to the nature of our living now. And our program is paid for through an agreement, of course, with an annual fee. But again, that grants everyone access, the employees, the employers, and everyone else. You can transition to the next one for me.
Whoops, sorry. I'm so sorry. Just a second.
No, you're okay. No worries. 1 second.
How's that?
Did you mute him, Rima?
Oh, sorry. No, I muted myself.
Okay.
Okay, so helping the environment. More transit users equals fewer cars at facilities and less on-site parking. So even though we have a lovely thing called park and rides, and we will have things like mobility hubs in the future that help kind of enhance, the level of service. We've done a few things on our end to kind of, help the environment as well as mitigate some of our carbon footprint that we already have. As you know, a transportation company with a bunch of diesel vehicles in their fleet, we do have a pretty large footprint as well as our facilities. We have enhanced partner health and sustainability incentives. One of the big things with that is we've been the first transportation authority within the state of New York to introduce fully electric vehicles into our fleet. If you guys can see on the screen there's a picture of a 2019 New Flyer Excelsior Charge. That is a battery electric bus with over 200 batteries that are powered by lithium ions and can be charged daily. We have one vehicle that just arrived the other day and 3 more on the way that have the overhead capability charging. So if we were to kind of upgrade our facility in certain areas, they would be able to charge at stations and then resume service. And it also kind of ties into access to the following programs. So CDPHP Cycle, which you guys all know and love, which is our bike share program. We always tell people you can bring your bikes on the bus and then take them somewhere else if you kind of get tired or you want to go grab lunch. We have Flex on Demand, which is for ride sharing, kind of like Uber, but our own little nice spin to it. We have our own service, Polygon. And previously, I do want to mention briefly, the fare was $3 as of last year. We've actually reduced that to $1.50. I'm not sure if everyone knows that. We also have our Scoots, which is our electric scooter sharing program. And we have a van pool that is really for groups that have that special need, people who really can't access transportation, maybe in certain times, certain areas. We have a partnership that can kind of grant them access to vehicles.
Should I do the next slide?
Yep. Alrighty. New mobility, CDPHP Cycle, excuse me. Our regional bike sharing program with more than 500 bicycles at over 100 stations, with riderships, exceeding 70,000 rides. Very big milestone for us. Food for thought. We do have an order of, I believe, 100 bikes, Lindsey, if I'm correct. They're electric bicycles that are going to be, able to be obsessed, hopefully by the end of the season, if not a little bit before then. And then, of course, our electric scoot program. We have the pilot program ready to begin, but we're kind of just tying up a few bits and pieces. And of course, our Flex on Demand that offers curb-to-curb travel, something that a few transportation authorities have, like in Washington. They used a different platform, where ours is a little bit more personable. They're trained by our operators, they're our drivers, and they are very familiar with the service in the capital region. And if you could transition to the next, there we go. In the Flex on Demand service area, we do have one of our newer service areas that services Southern Saratoga and Mechanicville. Right now it's in the free pilot program, which means you can just hop on and not have to, pay anything, which is very good. The hours of operation Monday through Friday, of course, are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., Saturday and Sunday being 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we have our much larger area here in the capital region, the Colony, Guilderland, and Latham area. It's $1.50 per ride, with a day pass maximum of $3.90, which I will explain in a moment here. The hours for that, Monday through Saturday, is 6 a.m. to 10:45 p.m., Sunday being 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So now that we don't have day passes and we have our Navigator contactless fare program, the fare is $1.30 if you're using a smart card or your Navigator app. And once you reach the amount of $3.90 for that day, the rest of your rides for the day are free. So that's why it kind of has that symbol there. So if you got off of 3 buses already, you want to go over to Colony Center and you book a Flex ride, you pay for the fare that way. That means your ride for Flex basically will be free and everything else for that day. And it's the same for regular buses as well. The 922, 923, 905, no matter what service you're using, fixed route in the capital region, after you exceed that 3 ride minimum, the rest of your rides are free. And if we can continue to the next one, perfect. So recently in the news, we did have Chuck Schumer and a few other municipal partners talking about our new Gateway Mobility Hub, something that we are very excited about. This will be one of the many that we're going to be bringing to the capital region. This will introduce multiple mobility options, and construction is expected to be completed by the summer of 2023. Of course, it will include our favorite bus rapid transit, our 905, the Red Line, more fixed route services, including services that go all the way up to Saratoga and Amsterdam soon. CDPHP Cycle, the scooter share, and our drive, our electric cars, which will be available for rental reservation in the upcoming months or so. Second here. And does Navigator Monthly Pass cover flex trips? That is a great question. And yes, it does. There is no additional cost or fee to you for you to use that service if you have a Navigator Monthly Pass. And looking ahead, as we like to do, we like to plan for the future and be the most innovative transportation authority that the Capital Region has. That's what we strive for. So as we expand into Montgomery County and Amsterdam, we're constantly looking at ways to kind of improve our ways of service now, whether it be digital, whether it be physical, something like a bus or a scooter. And soon we will be introducing a new mass mobile application that will be able to do things like, rent a scooter, also pay your bus fare, and maybe even have your reservation for the drive car, like a one-stop shop almost, schedules, planning trips. A lot of the services that we already offer, we'll kind of put that into one place to help eliminate some of the, the excessive apps that we already have. And like I mentioned briefly before, CDPHP Cycle, our e-bike pilot program, again, these are electric bikes. Some of the first in the Capital Region, at least to my knowledge, that I've seen. It's going to be the same principle as our regular CDPHP Cycle. The only difference is it's electric. Additional van pool opportunities, again, strengthening that community partnership that we already have to kind of get more people access to transportation if it is limited. We're going to be doing some bus lane feasibility studies as we expand our BRT network. We're going to be checking to see what areas are good to have bus lanes to, of course, help make transportation safer in that corridor of Western and Washington Avenue for our new vehicles that we've ordered and the new services that we're going to be introducing in that area. And last but not least, something that's very talked about as of recent is our Drive electric car sharing program. Something that, sorry, I have another question here. Will the bus lane feasibility study consider options for sharing bus lanes with bicycles and occupancy vehicles? Okay, so that is a very good question. To my knowledge, with the existing bus lanes that we already have, it will kind of be strictly for buses. From what, well, I guess this is how I can say it. From the pictures that I've seen, what we're aiming for is that there's going to be a bicycle lane separate, like on the other side of that bus lane. So the bus will have priority in that one lane with its own signal that will grant it 6 to 10 seconds of almost like a head start into traffic before the regular traffic comes behind it. And you'll have access to the bus lane on the side of that. Or excuse me, bikes. You'll have a bike lane on the side of that. Sorry about that. Was there any other questions regarding anything that we covered in this presentation or anything that I said? Okay.
Great, thank you so much, Jonathan. Okay, so next up we have Jim Davis, who's the director of the Policy and Performance Bureau at the New York State Department of Transportation Office of Policy and Planning.
Hi, Rima. Yes, are you able to flip through the slides? What is that, or you want me to do that from here?
Yes, I could do it if you'd like.
That'd be great. That'd be
okay.
Appreciated.
Yep.
Great. All right, and thanks for the invite. This has been great. Really kind of pretty illuminating to sort of see how all these pieces are sort of fitting together, and CDTA's really kind of leadership in the industry as far as incorporating all of these modes into a transit agency portfolio. It's quite impressive. So good to participate in this discussion. So my topic is really kind of taking a step back and looking at what NYSDOT has been doing in the area of travel demand management and how that has kind of worked hand in hand with Capital Moves program that Rima manages at CDTC, in cooperation with CDTA, and how we kind of have a good sort of synergistic support of programs here. Our Department of Transportation, so I'll kind of cover kind of a snapshot of our existing program and how it has supported the CDTC program, and a little bit on future direction that's sort of being driven by a lot of the factors and phenomena that have been covered earlier, back to Jen's presentation, and how the market is shifting and technology is progressing, and all sorts of disruptive directions here. So if I could have you flip to the next slide. All right, so from a NISDOT's historical participation in TDM, we have, and if you take the description of the activities that are covered under TDM, I think Rima had some great definitions out there of what is TDM. We've been really engaged in this since the early 90s. Our department got into this in response to employer trip reduction requirements that were included within the Clean Air Act all the way back in the 90s, and that's sort of evolved into a direct delivery of TDM services in the New York metropolitan area. Our 3 downstate regions in the New York metropolitan area have been operating travel demand management programs dating back to the early 90s, and its current branding is the 501 New York Rideshare, which Rima referred to, and that includes employer outreach and marketing, technical support to promote transit and carpooling and other sustainable modes. We have a ride matching platform that I'll describe a bit in some subsequent slides. We also tailor services where we have information that we have through our 511 system, including a statewide transit trip planner that covers 63 different operators across the state in terms of point-to-point trip planning, using an open source trip planner that's developed in Portland. And over the years, we've continued to operate directly in the downstate region, but we've looked for ways to partner with and support and take advantage of the investments and developments that we've had in our downstate program to make those kinds of things available, those products and services available at no cost to upstate travel demand management programs such as Capital Moves. So it includes making the ride matching system available, and also providing other sort of support tools and marketing materials. So we can jump on to the next slide, Rima. All right, so I think this is kind of encapsulating some information that Rima provided earlier on what TDM is, but these are some of the services that are offered within our overall statewide TDM program. Mobility, transportation, technical assistance. We've done some assistance on even helping some employer and site level TDM planning. We manage a good guaranteed ride program downstate and provide technical support elsewhere with that. Van pool and van pool formation, administration support, preferred parking promotions. As you know, we've worked with a number of larger employers on preferential parking for carpools. Customized rideshare portals, which the Capital Moves is an example, but we also have quite a few customized portals that are specifically for individual employers. It gets promoted under their branding as opposed to 501 New York Rideshares, and can be constrained to just employees within those firms, or more broadly if that's the preference. But that's a toggle that we are able to support. And we, again, provide technical assistance on commuter benefits, transit trip planning, telework planning. We gave a number of webinars early on in the pandemic about for businesses on tips and tricks for successful teleworking. And then as we've had downstate, a lot of activity in the area of shared mobility and interest in micromobility. So we've provided some technical support for transit operators and municipalities in the how to or things to know about these topics. So that's a general frame of what we do in our downstate program, and that we also support statewide. So flips to the next slide. So specifically, as you saw, CDTA probably covers 3/4 of that last slide in terms of things that they just have within their portfolio. So we tend to try to look at outside of our New York metro area program, where can we provide complementary leveraging of services. So we in the Capital Moves context, we provide the ride matching platform. We do support outreach to employers. The web portal, the Capital Moves web portal is something that we provide support for, and some technical admin assistance on van pool formation and guaranteed ride. We assist with managing, with Rima with looking at performance reporting and emissions analysis, that kind of thing. I didn't have on here marketing materials that we pulled together in the downstate region or elsewhere are shareable across this sort of network of partners. So that's another thing that we do with Capital Moves. So if I flip to the next. So this is just a screenshot. Not looking to read this out to you, just to sort of to give you a quick view of what we provide out there. So this is built off of a template that we're able to deploy elsewhere, and it's used by our other partners. So it's basically allows a program like Capital Moves to provide develop local regional content, program-specific, tailored content. I think Rima had mentioned achievement badges earlier. You can kind of see those there, sort of worked into the portal. If I could hit the next slide. I mentioned the ride matching system. Just a quick screenshot here of the ride matching system that we have deployed downstate for about a decade now, and it's actually used by I think most of the upstate travel demand management programs as well. So everything's in one database, but it's again it's available to branded to support whether it's an individual employer or a program like the Capital Moves, and an individual registrant can go in and put in information about their commute. Everything is the personal information is not provided here. There's an ability to contact one another, but everything is very kind of controlled and behind the curtain here. So you can put in your what days of the week, are you commuting? Do you have preferences for music, no food in the car, places to meet, park and ride locations, that kind of thing. And then this directly now ties to the trip tracking capability, so you can monitor your how much reduction in emissions have resulted from your commute patterns. This also does support bike buddies, which is I guess basically a similar thing of connecting up with other people who would want to bicycle commute or for recreation or what have you. And let's see, so we flip to the next slide. Again, we promote or support the promotion of regional program content here. So in this case, it's the Guaranteed Ride Home program that's incorporated into the CDTA portfolio, and other parts of the state. It may be structured differently. We don't have a universal Guaranteed Ride program statewide, but we basically work with the regional program to promote what's available there. And if we flip to the next program, and as long as we have everybody in this portal, we've tried to pull customized information that's available from the 511 program. So you can, without having to jump out and navigate your way through the 511 system, you can get to kind of capital district specific information, whether it's construction projects or grabbing cameras or what have you. So that's sort of just built in park and ride locations. So that is something that we incorporate into our portals. Flip to the next one here. I mentioned we have employer portals. Again, same technology, same platform, but customized and tailored for individual employers. This has really been the crux of our program downstate. We have hundreds of employer portals up and running with large employers. In the Capital District, we have portals up and running with University of Albany, the DEC, NYSERDA. I believe we have something with Albany Med as well. Rima probably knows quite a bit more about this than I do in terms of who is active in this program. It was the participation in this program was one of the metrics that Rima referenced earlier, also as far as registered users.
Well, since you mentioned it, I think there's one missing, but I don't think it's Albany Med. I'd have to look it up. I don't have them memorized.
Right. Yeah. That's right. Let's see. So actually, if we flip to the next, so these are our promotional materials. I can't speak to these individual ones, but typically, if we develop something for one part of the state, we just basically make it available to any other partner, and you can customize, tailor it. You can change your bike share or scooter share picture to promote the CDPHP as opposed to whatever maybe bike share partner that would be in another part of the state. So we just try to reduce the cost and effort to pull together promotional materials for travel demand management. And so these are just a couple of examples that we assisted with here. And if we flip to the next, just to give a broader picture of who we've worked with around the state. So there are these other regional programs that we partner with that all very similar to how we work with the capital moves as far as tailoring content that's of interest to each of these regions. Again, we're our branded program downstate, a 5 on York rideshare, which, by the way, we branded it that before Uber and Lyft came along and adopted the word rideshare to mean a lot of things that we're not really necessarily talking about here in terms of sharing rides and getting SOVs, single occupant vehicles off the road. But so we brand per the local partner program, and so we really are to some extent upstate of sort of a back office support program for regional and employer programs. So if we flip to the next slide, so I think Rima and Jen both sort of touched on major changes in the mobility marketplace, and you see CDTA being pretty active in a lot of these areas, with universal payment, micromobility, mobility as a service being something that they're looking at. These are all kind of emerging market services that are kind of changing the landscape. And as we look at what's the best role, what's the best value-added role for NYSDOT to play in supporting kind of mobility services that are portable to different parts of the state. These are some of the driving forces and how we need to kind of look at evolving a support program. So if we hop to the next slide here, so we're currently, and can't get into too much detail on this because there's currently actively a solicitation out on the street, but at the 100,000 foot level, you know, as we're looking to update the contract that provided the services and develop the content for all the previous slides, we have an RFP out to really look at what we need to do as a statewide mobility services program to adapt and incorporate and take advantage of the changes in the marketplace. You know, we also have the Climate Leadership Community Protection Act that is setting a high target of 85% reduction in GHG emissions by 2050. So we're looking at you know, how can we purposefully, consciously, intentionally promote mobility, lower emitting mobility options as a part of a statewide program. And so at a kind of 100,000 foot level, you know, we're really looking at how can we engage and collaborate with a broader array of partners across the state. How can we improve the way we've managed and co-developed content and services. You know, we have you know, it's a big state. There's a lot of different transit agencies. There are a lot of different MPOs, a lot of different local governments. So we're, you know, how can we identify, you know, gaps and opportunities that we can help with at a regional partner level. Are there common tools and strategies like the kinds of things that we do currently that can be leveraged to support regional programs or even local mobility efforts? And then how do we evolve TDM services to reflect the opportunities and the changes that are out there in the marketplace with these sort of new emerging technologies and disruptive technologies and services. So that's currently the RFP is out on the street for that. We're hoping that we're going to get some tremendously exciting proposals that'll bring us into an ability to provide improved services and build on the partnerships that we've been able to develop to date, such as the capital moves. So that is kind of where we are. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk through that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to speed you through that last slide.
Oh, no, that's good.
Okay. Okay, great. So next on to TDM resources. Jen, were you going to go through these slides?
Sure, I can go through the last couple of slides quickly. So just to wrap up, wanted to provide some information on resources available to communities in the region to, you know, move some of these programs or ideas forward, to do infrastructure planning or any other kinds of planning assistance you may be looking for. As far as funding, we're currently updating our transportation improvement program, the TIP. The state DOT solicits for transportation alternative program and congestion mitigation and air quality program projects. And we would expect another solicitation sometime in the next 2 years, possibly. CDTC's Capital Coexist mini grant program is currently open. I'll cover that really briefly, quickly. And CDTC's Unified Planning Work Program is where we fund our transportation and community linkage program and technical assistance program. We solicit for new projects towards the end of the year for our Unified Planning Work Program. So you should always look for our website for more information on that. Next slide. Next slide, Rima. Okay, so I'll just go through. Then I talked about the Capital Coexist mini grant program. It's currently open and we're accepting proposals for traffic safety programming and initiatives, and bike skills training, and safety events that are led by local law enforcement. Next slide. The CDTC CDRPC Technical Assistance Program is a joint technical assistance program with our partners, the Capital District Regional Planning Commission. This program is also currently open, and we are accepting proposals. There's a very wide range of eligible projects, everything from helping communities get ready for the comprehensive planning update process, doing data collection, mapping, small scale planning projects, and even zoning and site planning or zoning audit. We ask that those that are interested email us to discuss their request before they send an application. Next slide. Other funding resources, CDTC created a link that you can get to right from our homepage to information about the bipartisan infrastructure law, the bill. There's a number of discretionary and formula funding programs that have been announced pretty regularly, and we're expecting more. So as we learn more about these programs and get guidance, we're posting that information to our website. Next slide. CDTC collects a range of data, and we make this available to our local governments. So we have GIS resources. That include our sidewalk inventory, bike infrastructure, and trail maps. We also have bike and trail count data, survey templates and data, safety data, and all of this is available from CDTC by request. Next slide. And a range of other major CDTC products that can be referred to or reviewed if you're looking at additional information or resources. Okay, and we have just a couple of minutes left. If you have any questions for myself, Rima, Jim, Jonathan, or Lindsey, you can put it in the chat or use the Q&A.
I have a question for Jim.
Okay.
So can you speak about what the timeline is for the new RFP, the new 501-year ride share contract, or is that something that you can't discuss?
Well, the deadline for proposals is the 30th of June. So we, barring any change in that, we'll look to be designating we'll have a review team that will sort through the applications or the proposals, and ideally we'll be having selection by early August, and hopefully have a contract in place before the end of the year. We are continuing our existing program through the end of the year, unless we're able to accelerate the new program. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's no other questions in the chat or Q&A. So Rima, if you go to the last slide, this is just some information on how to contact CDTC or find us on social media. All of this information has been recorded and it will be uploaded to CDTC's YouTube channel. And we thank everyone for joining us today, and we especially thank all of our panelists. Thank you so much for spending time this afternoon. And we hope everyone has a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.